Okay, next I'm going to go on to a really important one, and this is actually something, it was a request that came in, and I've been there, and I actually think this is probably more applicable to most people than you might ever think. And the question is, how do you get recognized for the value that you bring to an organization? And this is really tricky because there's different sides to it. You have the value that you believe, actually I'm going to draw this out. So I'm going to write it out. How do I get So it's how do I get recognized in my business or career to basically get what you feel you deserve in terms of reward and value and recognition and stuff. So there's two sides to it. There's you. So this is what you think you deserve. And it's really funny because having been again on different sides of this coin, that isn't always an accurate reflection of reality, if that makes sense. And then you have the decision maker, who I'm just going to call boss in this instance, but it could be whoever. Your views and your boss's views might be different. And part of the challenge is that people often think, one of my guests on the podcast a few weeks ago was a guy called Chris Beavers. Actually, it was back in July, but I recapped his best advice a few weeks ago. And one of the things that he realized was that going through his career, especially in his younger kind of years, was the thought that someone was going to help him out, someone was going to recognize his talent, and that they would give him an opportunity and he could run with it. And I probably had something similar. And he kind of found that that just didn't happen. You always have to look out for yourself, look after your own kind of best interests, but do it in the right way and do it like properly, which is what I'm going to try and cover. But the point is, if you don't put the hard work and the effort in, kind of similar to the last one, nobody's going to help you out for free, if that makes sense. So what I've done, just to help me, because again, this is kind of live, I've put down 5 little points which I'm going to help kind of guide me, and then I'm going to write them on the board, and my scribble will probably be ineligible, but hopefully it'll still kind of help. So the first one is actually, you need to understand the aims and goals of the decision maker. So before everyone has a job, well not everyone, but you get my point. Everyone has a job and they feel that they should maybe get paid more or have better terms and conditions or whichever. The one challenge you have and a business has is that most business owners would love to pay people more and reward them more, etc. But they rarely have to look at how do I pay for it, because if a business makes less money or loses money or goes bust, everyone suffers. So that's not good. And it's a very difficult challenge to support a growing business, support people's ambitions to help them grow, but then actually as a business not increase your overhead so that the axe above your head, which is your overhead every month, which is something you have to pay, doesn't get bigger to the point where at some point it breaks and kills you all. And there are different ways and means to do that. But in terms of this example, for you, it's really important to understand the aims and goals of your decision maker. And what you're essentially trying to do with that is that essentially you want to chat to them, find them at a good time, and basically say to them and listen to them. We cover sales techniques in the book, but basically say, look, I want to help with the business. I want to add more value, and actually ask them, how can I add more value to the business? And actually it's that kind of thing that when you actually do that, you can align your interests so that they know that they have someone in their business which is on their same team that will help them achieve their goal. So I'm going to go number 2 is ask. Ask how you can help, because it's a really important thing that none of us know what's going on in someone else's life or business or whichever. But actually sometimes if someone just said to you, look, what else can I do to help? I really want to help us grow the business. They might have a perfect project in mind that actually what that does you've got aligned interests where actually, you're on the same page, and what you're trying to do is get the boss, get the person to actually visualize and see you as someone on their team, that actually they see you as a positive force for good to help them do what they're trying to do. But the real output of that is add more value. And this is where most people in their jobs will, to be honest, most people kind of plateau at a certain point. They get into their job, they do their stuff, and they don't necessarily want to work harder to get paid more money. They almost feel if they just stay in the same job for a longer time, therefore they should become more senior and basically get paid more. The truth kind of is that that doesn't work. You have to add more value. But actually in this process, the other thing which is really important, which actually came back from some feedback I got the other day, is actually how important it is, the people side of the business. And this is where you want to both get to know and listen, like properly listen to the decision maker or the people in your team to see how you can add more value. But actually in that conversation, and if you approach it with humility to basically say, look, I want to help, I want to do more, how can I add more value, what problems can I fix? In that conversation, there's something called commitment and consistency, which is on page 122. And what you're looking to do there is almost, they're called micro agreements, but get the other person in that open and honest conversation to say, look, I hope you recognize that I add value to the business. I want to do more. How can I help? And I'm almost certain that that person will go, yeah, of course I recognize your value. I know you work hard. I know you do all these things. We can do this. But the point is, if you can get the two things, one, I'm going to get a different pen, is the recognition of stuff you've done in the past and what you currently bring to the team. Through the honest conversation to ask, look, what can you do to help the boss or help the person grow? That will go a long way. But the other one is the added value conversation. And then basically once you have the ability to add more value to organization, and you've actually got the recognition from the decision maker who kind of controls your destiny, combine these two. When it then comes around to a discussion about your pay or your annual PDR, which is your personal development review, you can demonstrate the added value in the stuff that you bring. And then likewise, for someone I know quite well, if you are a salesperson, or even if you're not on your managerial type positions, you'll still have KPIs and measurements and stuff. Demonstrate and almost agree with them, look, if I can hit this KPI, will I be considered for whichever? And it's those kind of things that what you're doing is get an agreement along the step. You've agreed the plan and approach for how to get to your goal. These are your lead actions in some ways. But actually, in some cases, and I've been there, you will have bosses and people that just don't, it's not that they don't like you, but they don't value your talent. And the other side to it as well is that if you get to a point where your ceiling is capped, you don't feel there's anywhere else to go, and you've still got ambitions to do more, you can always look and basically see if someone else would value your talent more. I wouldn't recommend this. Often people just, your boss might be so busy with doing their own thing that they just hadn't really thought of this, but it's always worth kind of keeping in mind. But actually, if you can then honestly, you've asked the question about how can I add more value, you've worked hard, you've hit your KPIs, you've done all this stuff, and they still choose not to recognize it, the option always is there to make other decisions, which could be to leave or go somewhere else. That is kind of the honest business answer to it. But likewise, when I mentioned at the start about how it's really important for a business to be able to pay for any increased salaries or whichever, this is where the added value comes in, that you've kind of proven, you've created the mechanism to make that happen as opposed to just asking for a pay rise. So I hope that was useful.